can you state your name and occupation in the world of politics and what you do currently?
My name is Santos Javier. In the world of politics, I ran for City Council Ward 15, and currently doing Santos Javier TV and podcast.
And you had told me when I was on your podcast not too long ago that you had attended RIC. What was your time like as a RIC student, and what was your major?
It was fun. My major was music and history. It was fun. I didn't live in the dorm. I live at the house. You know, I live close by. At that time, when I worked at the bank, they would pay for the tuition. So it was I didn't have to pay. I paid in the beginning, at first, and then they'll pay the rest. You know, after I sent them the receipt or whatever. But the bank used to pay for the tuition. So it was fun. It was fun times. I had a lot of fun. Made a lot of people. Made great friends, and it was a good college.
And you know, some people their RIC experience they'll make good friends that they still talk to this day. Sometimes they'll go into a job in Rhode Island because a lot of RIC grads they stay in Rhode Island. How does your RIC experience still influence you to this day? Did you learn any valuable lessons that you ended up using for your work in the community or on the campaign?
Like I said, it went for music and history. So no, I mean I could say yes and no because that's cheap. What you do in your life, in your future, but music, I did music before and after. I still, once in a while, play with my drum machine and, my computer, FL Studio. And I love history. I love to learn about, the past and how maybe that affects us in the future.
And, you had mentioned earlier on in one of your answers that you ran for city council. You did run in the special election here in Ward 15 in this past summer. What made you want to get into politics?
My community. I love my community, and I feel that there was a gap since there was no longer a city council. And I feel that I'm the right person for the job at that time. And, I seen the other candidates, and I feel that I could do much better, and I think I can do much better.
And you had ran, and this was your first ever political campaign. You did quite well in that crowded Democratic primary, placing, I believe it was third out of the four candidates. What were some of the takeaways that you had from that campaign? Did you learn any life lessons during that time?
I did. It was my first campaign. It was my first run. It was my first experience, and it was my first everything. And I learned a lot. There was a lot that I didn't know, that I was not prepared. And, for people who are running in their campaign for the first time, it's not easy, But yeah, I learned a lot. I made mistakes, and it was my first time, so it was normal. It was natural for me to, make mistakes. And I gained a lot and a ton of experience. Was
there anything that surprised you going around the ward and talking to everybody in this community?
Yes and no. Some stuff already knew, people already were asking and they were wanting, things to be done in their community. For example, sidewalks. They were more concerned about speeders, people speeding through the streets. That I already knew. Some of the things that surprised me was the gun violence, and some of the streets that had extreme violence that in our own neighborhood sometimes we don't even know about. So that was a little bit of surprise, but other than that, I made a lot of great folks.
And what have been some of the things you've been up to since your run for city council? Are you still involved in local politics?
I'm always involved in politics, especially when it comes to my community. I want my community to have a fair share of what's going on. I want them to get a piece of the pie, of whatever, the government is doing, make sure that my community gets something. Right now, like I said, I'm currently running a podcast, to inform my community of everything, and not just my community, but the whole city, state of, Providence, Rhode Island, about things that are going on with their politicians and with the media and everything else. And
when we were talking off camera a couple times, you had an interesting vision for the city of Providence when you were talking about your campaign. This was, I believe, you were knocking on the door across the street, and that was the first time we had met in person. It was after I had you on the show. Can you explain for those watching a little bit about your vision for the city of Providence? Because I find it quite interesting.
That's still my vision. As a matter of fact, I was talking to a friend of mine, Landred. He purchased a building which they're going to build. Sort of like a housing for tech and stuff. You know, like it's gonna be everything in between. But that's still my vision is to, and I'm still working on it. With somebody else, Alex Jimenez, and the vision is to bring tech. I want to have like our little hub of, let's say, Silicon Valley in Olneyville or Silver Lake and Manhattan. So for that community, you know, not as big, but something simple. But I want, like, for example, young people to be able to experience their careers and take a sample of how it's to work in tech and electronics, robotics. So my vision still is to have Olneyville as the hub of the small, or that only Silicon Valley in Rhode Island, in the state of Rhode Island, and, you know, and my still the vision, and I'm still working on it. So I want to bring a little Google, a little Apple, a little Amazon, a little for everything tech to our community, and have maybe young people have maybe a work experience and learn what is, you know, how to work in tech and the basics of tech.
And now going to your podcast, can you explain for those watching a little more about the podcast and how it came to be?
The podcast came to be because of when I was commencing and I was door knocking and I was speaking with people. I see their concern. I see that they didn't have a voice. I see that no matter what they said, it went into deaf ears. So my thing with the podcast was like, I need for my community to have some sort of communication. So I want to be the link between them and the higher ups. You know, that if something happened, for example, have a lady coming over because you want to speak about what's going on her street, you know, and how can we fix it. So I want the podcast to be the voice for her to get across, you know, the higher officials, you know, to take notice, and, you know, and that, don't forget about, you know, our neighborhood in our cities, and be like, okay, you know, let's come and let's get together, you know, let's see what's going on, let's find a solution, you know, because just, you know, telling me, Santos, this is what's going on, you know, it's limited to what I can do. But if I give it a voice, you know, to my podcast, and it goes everywhere, and then we can get a louder voice and something can get done.
And you've had a number of elected officials ranging from local politics here in Providence to now you told me that you're going to have the governor on soon. Can you tell, like, who are some of the people that you've had on the podcast that those watching may not know about?
I had Senator Sam Bell. I have Mayor Maria Rivera from Central Falls. I have Mayor Eloza. I have a wide range of individuals. Rosa del Castillo, and so many others which won't come to my mind right now. Well, I have Oscar Perez. He's a police major in Providence, and so many other ones, and I continue to have so many other ones, you know, and I'm trying to bring everyone together, you know, like I said, you know, higher ups, you know, and regular people, local people, you know, people from far away, entertainers, everything. I just want the community of Silver Lake, Olneyville, you know, Manhattan Valley, and to be involved, to be counted, you know, in our state of Rhode Island.
And where do you see this podcast in like a year's time, 2, 3? Because you have a bright future with this podcast. I'm curious, where do you see this podcast?
Yeah, thank you. We're here to stay. You know, I want to say that we're here to stay, and I want to say that. You was one of my inspiration.
Thank you.
I learned a lot from you, you know, and I mean, I had already this idea for some time, you know, it's nothing new. But, you know, originally what I wanted to do and what I'll do in the future is review tech, because I love tech, you know, and that was my thing, you know, tech reviews, you know, which I'm still gonna go forward with it. But like I said, everything changed when I was, you know, canvassing and knocking on doors and talking to the people, and, you know, hearing, you know, what they needed in the community, you know, and that's why I decided to just put that on hold and just start a podcast and, you know, bring everyone else to listen to the community and for the community to listen to them, you know, vice versa. Just as I brought them, I'm going to bring the community and, you know, everyone together. So we can get a solution. So we can bring Silver Lake on the build and Valley, to rise up and in a point that people that they be heard. You know what I mean? Give the voice so we find a solution and we have a happy neighborhood, happy community, which means that our children gonna have more safety, better education, better jobs, and better security for our community.
And talking about your hobbies a little bit, I know you like to travel and you've been around the world, and you're big into cameras and the tech world, like you mentioned. Aside from like those things and podcasting, do you have any hobbies or fun facts that people may not know about you?
I'm a gamer. I'm a gamer. I've been a gamer since my whole life. I love tech. And I love to design. I write C++ code and try to develop games, apps, robotics. Using Arduino, Raspberry Pi, and all that sort of stuff to make it work together. I love electronics. I studied electronics when I went to high school, and mechanics. So that's one of my hobbies. I love to read, and I also written 2 books, which I'm gonna give you a copy of one of them. So I'm still working also on books. I write a lot of books, and that's another one of my hobby is to write.
And actually, I had said aside from the traveling, I actually kind of want to hear more about the traveling because I remember you showing me pictures. You went to Hong Kong.
Yeah, Hong Kong, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Philippines, Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, all over Europe, all over the States, Dominican Republic, the Caribbean, Hawaii, mostly. I forget the other one, but I've been to a lot of places.
My final question, you have a bright and long future in public service, whether it's via advocacy work through your podcast or maybe running for political office in the future. What's next for Santos Javier?
My options are still open. I'm still considering, what I'm going to do. I'm right now focused on the podcast, but we'll see what happens next year. But, all the options are on the table, and I'm just analyzing everything. Like I said, now I have more experience. I have better relations with so many other people. So we'll see what happens. It's still too soon to say, but all my options are on the table. But like I said, I care about my community, and as my community comes first. As long as everything gets done in my community, then we'll see. But all the options are on the table.
Mr. Javier, thank you so much for sitting down for this interview.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.